adventure of a lifetime with his buddies to get back to him, and then this bitch just straight up goes, well, you know you can just leave him right now. Bitch, it's Woody. Woody ain't leaving Andy, right? Hello there, and welcome to Blockbuster Review. If you don't know what that is, it is where I play a single game of Tetris Marathon and try and review a film before hitting 150 lines, or the blocks get all the way to the top. No spoilers till line 50. Here we go. So Toy Story 4 is a movie that was the fourth film in a franchise called Toy Story that began when I was a young lad. A young lad, and I avoided Toy Story 4 for a long time, and the reason I avoided it was because, well, I'll tell you, it was a different reason than why I avoided Toy Story 3. I avoided Toy Story 3 because I was told it's gonna make you cry. I was basically told by everybody who had seen it, yeah, you're gonna cry. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how much. So I avoided it like the plague, even though I was told it's a very good movie and you gotta see it. So when I saw it, I did what everyone should do who has a soul, and I cried a whole bunch. Just cry. Toy Story 4 came out with that trailer, and I, like many people who enjoyed the Toy Story trilogy, said, why is there a sequel? Toy Story 3 ended perfectly. There's no reason to have a sequel. It makes no sense. The whole point of the series kind of came to a head. It made perfect sense. It was a perfect ending. It deserved a Best Picture nomination. Didn't get it. Whatever. But we didn't need any more. I have Disney Plus, so I gave it a watch. And Toy Story 4, I understand why it has a very divided opinion on it. There are a lot of people that will say, oh, it's good, it's good. I mean, if you say it's better than Toy Story 5, I don't know what on earth you could possibly be talking about. Did I say Toy Story 5? I meant Toy Story 3. If you say it's better than Toy Story 3, you might need to check yourself into a hospital to just double check your upstairs, because something might be wrong. But watching it, it made me angry. As a very big fan of the original 3, Toy Story 4 made me upset, and it made me upset basically from the jump. Now, I don't want to go into why it upset me in the first 5 seconds so much without getting into spoiler territory, because this movie was spoiled for me early. Because now in this world of the internet and memes that have to get made by all you creative geniuses that can't just let things come out without making your wonderfully important memes that get shared all over the world, Toy Story 4 was spoiled early, which is that at the end of Toy Story 3, Woody would be leaving the rest of the toys. I found that out without seeing the movie. And I thought immediately, well, there had to be a pretty fucking good reason that he would leave the rest of the toys, because we had just watched, in Toy Story 3, a movie where that guy essentially pulled toys from the trenches of a war to get those toys back to Andy, because that was his job. He was the sheriff, and he rounded up all those toys for Andy and made sure that they got back to him. And then we have this movie where he leaves them, so there has to be a pretty fucking good reason. And that reason has something to do with Bo Peep, who was acknowledged in the promotional materials for this movie, who was kind of his lady friend in the first 2 Toy Stories, who was completely absent from Toy Story 3. Now, in the first 5 minutes of Toy Story 3, we find out that she was given away. She was originally Molly's toy, who is Andy's sister. I believe Molly is her name. I really hope so, because that would be embarrassing, being a fan of the story. And she gives kind of this, like, shrug, like, well, you know, you get given it away, man. Kids give you away all the time. And she looks at Woody and says, well, you know, toys get lost all the time, to Woody, Andy's favorite toy. And this is arguably right after the events of Toy Story 2, because Jessie and Bullseye are in the crew. So we know that Woody had just had an adventure where he was offered the fucking world of being one of the most important toys at a toy museum, and he gave it up for his kid, Andy. and experienced a adventure of a lifetime with his buddies to get back to him, and then this bitch just straight up goes, well, you know you can just leave him right now. Bitch, it's Woody. Woody ain't leaving Andy, right? And then what did they do? Then they set up the movie. After that scene, if I had not known that Woody would be done by the end of it, I would have fucking guessed it. Because it was played out like a fucking scene, like a romantic comedy scene, where the first time they have the chance to stay together forever and they don't, but you know they're getting together at the end, when it's like, but they're fucking toys. And they're not just toys, they're Andy's toys, who have gone through lifetimes of adventure just to be there for Andy, and now they have a new kid. The end of Toy Story 3, he is given away to Bonnie, who one of the shining moments of this movie was presenting the most adorable girl character I've ever seen in a film. Bonnie, who is unbelievably adorable and cute and awesome, and really anxious and having a hard time in kindergarten. And then the movie presents something that is like real deep that I would have liked to explore if we didn't have this subtext that Woody's gonna just abandon his post, which is like from moment one, if you know anything about fucking subtext and movies, you're like, yeah, well, he's gonna fucking bounce on this because he's not needed anymore. He helps Bonnie make a new toy who believes it's trash, and then you have these great scenes with Woody and this piece of trash, and Woody is trying to explain to Forky, who's played by Tony Hale, who's killing it, like, dude, you're not just trash, man. You are the most important thing to this girl, and you have to understand the responsibility that comes with that. By the way, I'm gonna abandon her fucking immediately. Immediately. The second I get a chance to get back with that, I'm gonna lose this game because I'm so upset. The second I get a chance to leave this kid to get back with an old flame, I'm gonna do it because this kid doesn't need me. It'd rather play with a fork. Which, I don't know, Woody didn't have that fucking attitude when Andy brought home Buzz. Woody didn't have that attitude when he was put on a shelf and almost abandoned him for like the life of being a toy in a museum. But now he's gonna do it to Bonnie because he found out he's not king shit in this room anymore. It's fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. It's so fucking frustrating. And then they had the balls to make this Gabby Cabby character, who Disney's doing this now, where they're like, well, we have to make the villain sympathetic somehow. When in Toy Story, the villains in Toy Story were like Hitler incarnate. The fucking Lotso Bear, we were all ready to burn at the stake at the end of Toy Story 3 because he was menacing and terrible and horrible and the worst. And in this one, they're like, well, Gabby, she just wants to get played with too. He's like, yeah, by ripping open Woody, who he allows it. He just goes like, yeah, nobody wants me anyway. I want to go bang this side chick. Oh God, I could talk about this movie for hours, and it just upsets me the entire time. But I just don't understand how you can make a movie with so much about loyalty, which he even says at one point during the movie. So much about loyalty, so much about your place is to bring joy to children. And then in a moment when you're not top shit and you have a chance to get back to that lady friend that you kind of had, who told you to give up your passions at a time when the most important thing to you was helping out others. I don't know. Fuck this movie. That's the. I could talk about this movie for 2 hours. It's really sad, and I understand how silly it is. But Toy Story 4. Last thing I'll say, if you have children, have them watch Toy Stories 1 and 2 when they're kids. Wait until they're adults, show them Toy Story 3, and then don't let on that Toy Story 4 exists, and let them find it so that they can discover that bad movies exist. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.